Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tsunami Studios. And if you're listening to this on the podcast channel, good hearing you, or hearing me. You guys know what it means. Welcome to the first ever episode of The Favorite Comics. And this is the 15-part miniseries where I talk about my favorite comic books, why I love them, how they impacted me, and why they're on my list. And I wanted to start off by talking about probably the first DC comic book I ever read. Isn't that weird to say, that this book is the first DC comic I ever read? I think it's insane, and it's one that has stuck with me, I think, since I read it, and has been with me ever since. It's one I go back to a lot. When people ask me, hey, what's a book you recommend people check out? I always say this one. That, of course, is DC Comics' Kingdom Come. Now, Kingdom Come is a mini-series from creator Mark Waid with art by Alex Ross, and oh my god, is this book powerful and impactful and moving. And it's just one of those books that reminds me why I like DC Comics so much. So I think I first read this book when I was like 10 or 12. In that time frame, my mom bought it because she was a fan of Wonder Woman and she really liked Alex Ross's art. And I just remember looking at that cover with like that. It's the cover that had like the bright green background with Superman leering over a table. And it was just one of those books I just remember thinking about and looking at that cover, and there was just something about it that was always different to me than classic comic books at the time, because it is a book from the 90s, and as I was a young guy, I always thought the 90s were a weird period just because there's a lot of weird, ugly, modern stuff, but some of my favorite books are from the 90s, and this is one of them. So Kingdom Come is just this brilliant piece of fiction that it surprises me it worked so well. First off, I think a lot of that has to do with Alex Ross. I love this guy. I've loved, I think, everything he's worked on. He is on a whole other level when it comes to his like character design and his character creation. He just has this certain style about his work that is so timeless and flawless, and you love everything it is about. It's just truly an inspirational style of his. Like, there's nothing like it in the industry, and there'll never be anything like it again. And his work doing every single page and every single character in Kingdom Come is brilliantly crafted. I'm just amazed by his work and the way he paints his characters. And while I love the way Alex Ross did everything, the reason I stayed and I always came back to this book was Mark Waid. And I hold so much respect for him because there's something about his style of writing that I really enjoy, especially in this time period. I would argue, or I would say, there are few people in the industry itself that have as much respect or are as big a champion as superheroes as he is. Like, each story he writes is a thought-provoking, intelligent, and personal piece about your favorite characters, and you could tell from everything he's ever done, whether it's good or bad, he loves superheroes, he loves comic books, and because of this one, because of Kingdom Come, I would say you could tell he loves Superman. Some could argue that Kingdom Come is Waid's best work, and you know what, I would agree with that statement. I would say you could arguably look at this and say this is when he truly shined and where he showed us what he wants to do in comic books and why he's become a name that's lasted as long as he has. I think this is why. This is exactly the kind of story that you should tell if you are a creator of any kind in this industry. I would argue that Kingdom Come transcends the typical superhero story. You know, it's not just about like the flashy costumes and the action sequences. It's something that I would say goes towards the American way of life, or what the American way of life was thought to be. You know, this book itself, it looks back on the fictional history of DC with high praise. And you could see that Waid was clearly a fan of the golden age of comic books. You know, he likes the stories where the heroes stood for good and they fought the bad guy, and the golden age was a simpler time. It was. Like, there's no arguing that the golden age of comic books was a simpler time. It was a pulpy, bright adventure where good triumphed and people stood for the right thing, and they were respected. Like, in the universe they were respected, and outside the universe they were respected. And that's the golden age of comic books that Waid remembers, and that's the one he loves. Now, Kingdom Come is kind of the opposite of that, but it's also the opposite of that in a way that's very telling of Waid's interest in the future. So the golden age of superheroes is no more in this book. Instead, it's a broken earth filled with entitled and powerful monsters who masquerade as champions of good. Is this story how Waid saw the future of comic books heading? Was the truth, justice, and the American way completely gone? where were the champions of Earth? Why did the citizens stay with these heroes, you know? That is what Waid was trying to say. I could argue that in this time period, Waid was trying to give you a message about the 90s aren't the way comics should be presented. You know, we had all this intense stuff going on, but that's not what Mark was here to write. That's not what he wanted to talk about. That's not what he was interested in saying. And that's why Kingdom Come exists, in my opinion, because it is one of those modern books, but it looks back on the heroes of yesteryear with a reverence to the past. You know what? It does that. There is so much reverence for every story in DC Comics that came before it that it's actually amazing that this book works. And none more so than the Man of Steel. In many ways, this book is about why the world needs a Superman. Now, Superman in this story is more complex than we've ever seen it before. He is recluse, hiding away from a world that no longer wants him or no longer believes he is wanted in. But that's not the case. The world is desperate for their hero, starving to have him return. And when he does, you see the change happen immediately. To Mark Waid, myself, and many others, Superman is the ultimate hero. There will never be a Magog or anybody in that nature who could replace him. This book is a love letter to the Man of Steel, why Superman is needed in the world, why he is beloved by the heroes in the world, why his sometime corny Golden Age values are so important in any time period. It's inspiring to see his symbol of hope return, not only in the comic book world, but in the real world as well. When we see that S come into this book, the first time Superman dons his costume again, he's got the black logo, so we know he's mature and he's darker. But you're still immediately like, that's Superman. This is the hero we desperately need to see return, the character we have loved for so long. He is here again, and we've missed him because of it. This book is such a love letter to Superman, and that's something I really like, because later on in my life, when I was a young kid, Superman wasn't for me. It was only very recently, in the past couple of years, that Superman has found a place in my heart as somebody I respect and admire. Just because, as I've gotten older, I'm like, we need those values to come back. We are closer to a world like Kingdom Come than ever, where the heroes we respected before are no longer. Our Magogs are running rampant around the city doing whatever. And the new era is gone. And like, all we have left is the memory of the classic characters we love. And they're campy. They have a restaurant like Planet Hollywood. That's just this corny little thing. That's how people remember them. But corny is good. Corny is sometimes very needed in the world, and in this book you see exactly why that is. And just having Superman be that character, because the moment Superman comes back onto screen, the moment we see him in the book again, the rest of the world takes note that that's what we need. And I love Mark Waid for that. Like, this could have easily have been something super easy to do, where it's like, hey, the new heroes suck, the old ones have to come back and fill in the reins again, and that's kind of what it is. But there's other ways around it, like a political idea of what a conflict could be between heroes. Is this book the proto-Civil War? You could argue it is. I happen to think it's not. And you could say, oh, didn't Alan Moore have a pitch for something like this? Sure. But this isn't about the conflict between the heroes, because when Superman and Batman go opposing each other in this book, that's not what it's about. It's about, hey, we're doing the thing that Magog did, and now you have to come back and see this is where the world needs to be. It's a fascinating, intense story that I think a lot of people need to read and understand to appreciate it. This book does a lot of characters right. Now, we're not going to go into each and every little character that they did. I spent a lot of time on Superman there. That's just because Waid loves Superman, I love Superman, the world loves Superman, it's his story. But the way they handle Bruce Wayne is very fascinating. They turn him from this kind of crippled man who could have easily been on the sidelines into this kind of scarier, darker character that we known he would have been before. He's a broken man, literally and figuratively, and it's very fascinating to see that portrayal of that character. Another one I really like in this book is the use of the Spectre. Now, the Spectre is a character who desperately desperately needs to be seen as the angel of death. And that's not a bad thing, because I think it works for that character. But in this book, I love it so much because of how dark the times have gotten. Even the Spectre himself has lost hope in humanity. That's why he has a human tether throughout the entirety of the book. And I think that is a really cool angle that just adds another layer to this story. Of course, there are great characters in here like Wonder Woman and seeing how she came into her own in this new world. Of course, seeing the Flash going so fast that he can never actually stop to catch a break because of what these other heroes have done is so intensely fascinating. But I think another character in here who's done really well is Billy Batson. Like, you see this character who is Captain Marvel just grow up to become this hurt and manipulated kid, and he is broken because of it. Like, you just see how this world has broken the heroes of yesteryear and how it's manipulated them. I think that's very fascinating. It's such a different angle. And I also love, it's a small thing in the book, I already talked about it, but everything is set in motion. The entire book starts to happen the moment Superman decides it's time to come back. Because that's the impact that he has. That's the impact that that character has on the world. It's just insanely satisfying, insanely powerful, insanely moving. The elder heroes of this world are no longer the icons they once were. They're just faded memories of a different time. In many ways, Kingdom Come is 1996. That was the comic book industry. And in many ways, Kingdom Come is an homage to an era that the readers forgot about. Back when the heroes we loved were the heroes we deserved. Kingdom Come, by all means, is a smart approach to the superhero future. It's steeped in mythology. It introduces fascinating elements to both new and old characters. It gives the reader a crash course on why Superman's values are so important. Team that up with the biblical art of Alex Ross and the emotional obsession with these characters of Mark Waid, you get the truest form of superhero storytelling, a book that loves its heroes as much as it challenges them. That's why DC Universe is for everyone. And that's why we will always need a Superman, and why the character himself will always be everlasting. This book will forever hold a special place in my heart, as it's the first book that I ever read from DC Comics. Now imagine being young and you've never seen anything in the DC Comics universe before, and this is the one you pick up. It's going to tell you that, hey, don't look at those flashy new characters that might be cool and might have cool costumes. Remember the ones that came before it. Remember when Superman roamed the earth and he protected everybody. Remember when the Flash ran so fast that he had to do everything in his power to keep it together. Remember the youthful energy of Billy Batson. Those are the characters that this book emulates, and it tells you they are important. They are the characters that deserve our respect and deserve to be loved. And they mean something. Maybe not to everybody, but they mean something to me. And Superman means something to the world. And that is why Kingdom Come is one of my favorite comics. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff. And I'll catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.